Hey guys, kind of doing part two of my why the sequel trilogy failed, and more importantly, I kind of wanted to discuss canon real quick to wrap up the other video because it cut off while I was talking. Um, why I think the sequel trilogy failed. If you haven't seen part one, check out part one. I'll try to add a link down in the description to that. But it it didn't accomplish what it set out to do. It did a disservice to the original trilogy and the original characters. And I think the end result has left a lot of people feeling mixed and divisive. And I'm not saying the prequels didn't leave people divisive, but not like this. Not. I think most people. I don't know too many people that just hated the prequel trilogy, and I don't know too many people who love it as much as the original trilogy. People were always just kind of, it's okay, it's mediocre, it's decent with the prequel trilogy. It was what I always took away from that. Whereas the sequel trilogy, for a lot of times, has been, you have people on this end of the camp and people on this end of the camp. There are people who really like this movie and then people who don't really like this movie. And it just seems more divisive. Going back, I was talking about my friend Ian, the one who's a lot younger than me. He's 19, and I'm in my mid-30s. And I was talking about in my previous video about how the age gap, we look at things differently. Like in Doctor Who, what we like to see in a doctor differs because of the eras in which we started watching the show because of our age. This really applies to Star Wars because, I started reading the EU probably around the mid-90s, not long after, I think Heir to the Empire came out in about 1990 maybe. I forget the exact year, but I think it's right around there. And it was, the Thrawn trilogy, Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, Last Command, were the three books that kind of started the Star Wars sequel books that led to the larger extended universe that we got. And they're really good. But he's never read them. I read them in the mid-90s when that was still canon. And I loved them. I love the Thrawn trilogy. I'll stack it right up there to the original trilogy anytime. Right there in terms of story. It's right next to it. That's how I hold these books in esteem. And there's other good books too, other good Star Wars books. The Jedi Academy trilogy is really good. The Truce at Baccarat is really good. Skip Darksaber. Darksaber sucks. Don't read Darksaber. What was that? The Crystal Star, I think I enjoyed. I can't remember the name of the trilogy that had Before the Storm and Shield of Lies in it. Tyrant's Test might have been the other one. That one was pretty decent. The books are hit or miss too, but more often hits than misses by far. But he's never had a chance to read these. And, I was talking in my other video how for Christmas I bought him a copy of Heir to the Empire because I've been wanting him to read it for a while. And it's interesting because he's been texting me a lot lately about how much he likes it so far. He hasn't finished it, but he's been texting about how he likes it. He really likes how Timothy writes Luke because it feels like Luke. These characters from the original trilogy feel like their characters. Han feels like Han. Leia feels like Leia. Luke feels like Luke. So on, so on, so on. And so it's really allowing him to click, at least so far. He's only partway into the first book. But already he's clicking with the original characters in it better than he clicked with the original characters in the sequel movies. And he's clicking, apparently, with some of the new characters that get introduced in these books better than a lot of the new characters in the sequel movies. Because they are, to me, some of the newer characters in the sequel movies didn't get enough character development by far. And the books allow more time to do that. You get to know them, like Mara Jade. You learn very quickly in these original three books that establish her, what her motivations are, her personality, why she does what she does, why she feels the way about Luke Skywalker she feels. And it's a very three-dimensional character. And the same thing with the guy she works for, Karad, I can't remember his name. I haven't read these books in so long. I need to buy myself another copy of them. I liked him. I had a good viewpoint of him, but he's not like, it's another Han Solo like person. Like the guy in Rogue One is supposed to be like another Han Solo scoundrel type. He doesn't come across like that. I mean, he's still kind of I can't remember if it's a mercenary or what it is, but he's still his own character that's done well, and I really like that. It's just neat to see him embracing the EU like that, and that's why I think it's way too early in the morning to be doing this. The sequel, if I had to sum up why the sequel movies fail, just to put a bow on that, is because of the inconsistencies in them. You can tell they were done by different people who had different ideas what they wanted to do with these stories, and they spend more time course correcting from each other than trying to tell a coherent story that makes sense. And they do a disservice to the original movies. As I was saying in my last video at the end, when your movie does something that takes away from the original trilogy, your movie's failed. If you diminish any kind of moment from the original trilogy, it's failed. And I think the sequel trilogy does that way too often in way too many places. So that's why it fails. It doesn't live up to the legacy of the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy, in my opinion. Because you, at least with the prequel trilogy, have a beginning, a middle, and an end that you could tell were done by one person. Moving on to the other topic, what I really wanted to talk about was canon. I really wanted to talk about my thoughts on canon, my opinion on canon. Because my opinion on canon is that it's entirely up to you. What is canon? You know, Disney came out back when they bought Star Wars, and they looked at the EU and said, this is no longer canon. Nope, no more canon. You can't... But they're still publishing the books where you can buy them. We put it under the Legends banner because they know that these books are better than the crap they're doing, and they still want to make the money off of them. So you can't sit here and say, this isn't canon, we're doing our own thing now, while still selling the books. You can call it Legends or all you want, but there's a lot of us who are going to look at that and go, we like this better. We like this. We don't want that. We want this. We like this. So I find it amusing that they're still selling these. And for a lot of people, they don't like the sequel trilogy, especially certain aspects of it, like how it deals with the original trilogy characters. And, they're frustrated that this is what has happened to them. And I say that to you. Disney doesn't get to decide what's canon and what's not canon, in my opinion. To me, that's up to you. What's in your head canon is for you. You know, one of the things I love about Doctor Who is Doctor Who, the BBC, has never really been big on coming out and saying what's canon and what's not. Like, are the Big Finish audios canon? They've never said. I mean, I know Paul McGann in the Night of the Doctor mentioned some of his companions from the Big Finish, although whether that just makes the companions canon or those adventures canon is also up for debate, but they've never specified. So, really, the things of Big Finish, and you don't have to go all or nothing. I don't believe Big Finish is either canon or it's not. I think you can choose. If you want to pick and choose some of Big Finish you'd like to be in your canon, great. If you want some of Big Finish to not be in your canon, great. Like the Derek Jacobi Master. I don't like him being the Master in the Time War because he regenerated into a boy. So for me, Derek Jacobi has always been the Professor under that illusion. He's only the Master right there at the end. I firmly believe that he regenerated himself into a young boy and changed his memory as a young boy. I don't accept the Derek Jacobi War Master. My headcanon, that doesn't work. Whereas then there's other things, like The Last Adventure with Colin Baker, that makes good headcanon for me. Because I like that better, and he just bumped his head falling down. And I like that Doctor Who doesn't... The BBC doesn't tell you what's canon and what's not. They let you make up your own mind. And to me, that's how it should be. I actually prefer the EU to canon. I do. As my canon. I like the EU better. The stories of the EU treat these characters with more reverence. And they communicate with each other. You'd almost swear. Like, even not just original trilogy characters, but some of the characters that Timothy created in the Thrawn trilogy, like Mara Jade is the best example. You know, in the different books, she acts consistent. She has a consistent personality, like that's being communicated from writer to writer, how she would react in these situations. So her, you're not ever looking at her like she's a totally different character from one book to the next. And they're much more developed. And I like that. That works for me. It's almost as if, again, the writers talked to each other and said, hey, let's work out something. Yeah, let's do this. Okay, you're going to do that. I'm doing this. Which is what we didn't get in the sequel trilogy. Too much tug of war. And, yeah, it's not really a big to-do. My thoughts on canon are just... No company can tell you what's canon and what's not. To me, it's up to you as a person. I mean, if Disney's like, well, you're wrong, we've said this is canon and we own it, I'm going to be like, whatever, in my head, the EU's canon and your movies aren't. What are you going to do about it? I don't own any of the sequel trilogy movies on DVD. None of them. Or Blu-ray or digital or whatever. I don't own any of the sequel trilogy. I have the original trilogy on DVD, and I have the special editions on DVD, and I have the prequel trilogy on DVD, because I love all 6 of those movies. I don't hate any of them. Like I said, episodes 1 and 2 are my least favorite of the 6, but I don't hate them. I think episode 2 is a better movie than Last Jedi. People will argue with me. How can you say that? I'll be like, well, simple. I can explain it to you in one sentence. Episode 2 has Christopher Lee. I feel like I've won right there. Last Jedi doesn't have Christopher Lee, and Christopher Lee's amazing. Christopher Lee played Saruman. I mean, he also played Dracula like a dozen times. He's been in a lot of famous movies. He was one of the second Howling. The House That Dripped Blood with Doctor Who, John Pertwee. And there's a man who in real life fought Nazis. Dude's a badass. And he's in episode 2 and episode 3. Even if he's not in episode 3 long, he still plays a pivotal part in tempting Anakin. And Christopher Lee's just good. Anytime he's on screen, he's stealing the scene. He's so good. And, little things like that go a long way. Episode 1 had Darth Maul. Darth Maul's great. I still think that lightsaber fight scene at the end of episode 1 is the best lightsaber fight scene in Star Wars. I think it's easily the best choreographed. The Duel of Fates music, perfect for it. So, even those movies have their bright spots. I'm not saying the sequels don't. Sequels have good movies, have good moments. The sequels have good moments. Just, I find the prequel movies, even as a whole, to be good. Not great, but better than mediocre. I actually think they're good. I enjoy them. Whereas the sequels have good moments in mediocre movies or bad movies. In Last Jedi's case. It's kind of like, if there's any Doctor Who fans watching, it's kind of like how I feel like Peter Capaldi got shafted in his era. Because he has a lot of really good moments in really mediocre episodes. Not all of them. Capaldi has good episodes. Heaven Sent's one of the best episodes in the show's history. But he has a lot of really good moments in mediocre episodes. And the first example I can think of is his speech in the Zygon inversion when he's talking to Kate and the girl, the Zygon looks like Claire, when they're got their hands on the buttons. The Zygon inversion speech, YouTube it. That's a great speech. That's one of the greatest moments in the show's history, in my opinion. One of the best speeches ever, and Capaldi nails it. The actual episode is a 2-parter that is... Oh, it's such a slog to get through. It gets boring and drawn out. It really should have been 1-parter. Or else a 1-parter that was extended to run longer. Like, instead of 45 minutes, give it an hour runtime, like they do sometimes for Doctor Who episodes. It didn't need to be 2 episodes. It put me to sleep. The couple twists in it I saw coming a mile away. 2 I can think of right off the bat. But that speech is still great. And that's the sequel trilogy. Some great moments. Luke on Crate being a badass with his force projection. Great. One of the best Luke Skywalker moments ever. Great. Loved that. Movie, terrible. Force Awakens, actually I don't mind that one, except for the fact that the other movies kind of let it down afterwards, because it sets up a payoff that never happens, and that kind of lessens it in retrospect, but still has some good moments. Rise of Skywalker, good moments. not necessarily a good, not a bad movie, but again, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, So, whereas in the prequels, while they have their good and bad moments, I still overall find them to be good movies. I've gotten sidetracked from canon. Real quick, back to canon. My main thing was just that it's in your head. Don't let Disney dictate to you what happens to these characters. They're not real anyway. They're fictional characters. They mean a lot. Luke Skywalker's one of my childhood heroes. For a lot of people, that's true. Han Solo, for a lot of people, that's true. Princess Leia, strong female character. A lot of people hold that true. She's a strong character. Well-developed, well-written. And for a lot of ladies, even growing up today, a lot of children today, she's a strong representation of a female character. And they all deserved better than the sequel trilogy. A lot of people look up to them. And even as fictional characters, they deserve more. So that's in your head. If you don't like it, my advice is check out the extended universe. If you're someone who either never got around to it, or maybe you're too young to have caught these books, maybe you were growing up in the mid-2000s, or even the mid-20-teens at this point, and you've never had a chance to get your hands on them, check out the Thrawn books. Heir to the Empire, Last Command, Dark Force Rising. These 3 books. Look at them. Start with Heir to the Empire, the first one. My friend's really enjoying it so far. And maybe you can find a better option. Something that you can look at the sequel trilogies and these books and go, you know what? This is better. I'm going to pursue this. And there are a lot of books. They wrote a lot of them. It will keep you occupied for a while. I'm not saying they're all great. Don't read Darksaber. Skip that one. It sucks. That's one of those I've read like 3 times and was like, I'd rather watch Last Jedi than that one. Says a lot. But most of the books are good. So just explore other options. Or if you want to write your own future, do that. Sit down, get you a pen and paper and say, you know what, after Return of the Jedi, for me, this is what happened. And that's what works for you, that's what works for you. Because ultimately, canon is up to you. In your head, what happens in Star Wars is up to you. Anyway, click the like button, click the subscribe button. Check out my other channel, Another Sci-Fi Guy, where I review other sci-fi related stuff, Babylon 5. I do a lot of these Doctor Who steel books and classic collection box sets. They've just announced season 14, another Tom Baker season will be coming later this year. Looking forward to that. It has Robots of Death on it, which is one of my favorites. And most importantly, thank you for sitting here and listening to me paddle on with an attention span of a 5-year-old. Have a good day.